Welcome back to Movies Unboxed. Today, we dive into the adrenaline-pumping series' most dangerous game. With deadly hunters on his tail and shocking betrayals lurking around every corner, will Dodge survive or become the ultimate target? Dodge Tynes, a real estate developer, is struggling to make ends meet after going bankrupt. His financial downfall stems from a poor decision to invest in a rundown high-rise office building called the Carrington. The building is in desperate need of repairs, but Dodge can't afford them, and he hasn't been able to sell the property. Tenants are also impossible to attract due to the state of the building. To make things more difficult, Dodge's wife, Val, is pregnant with their first child. Val, despite their troubles, remains optimistic and supportive, urging Dodge to keep his head up. On top of everything, Dodge suffers from severe headaches, for which he's been taking medication. One day, in a desperate attempt to get a loan, Dodge visits a company called Tyro Fund. He meets with the CEO, Miles Sellers, a man who seems to know all about Dodge's financial troubles. Miles offers him a shocking deal. He can get millions of dollars by participating in a hunting game, but he has to be the prey. Dodge is horrified at first and immediately declines, but Miles tempts him with the promise of millions of dollars in rewards. Each hour Dodge survives the hunt, a certain amount of money will be wired to his bank account from an offshore account, untraceable. If he survives all 24 hours, he'll walk away with a grand total of $24.5 million. Miles explains the rules. Dodge will be hunted by 5 people for 24 hours. Each hour, his survival will earn him more money, but the stakes will rise as well. The hunters could be anyone, any gender, any race, anyone in the city. The game has strict rules. Dodge can't stop or pause the game once it begins, he can't tell anyone about it, and he can't leave the city. Breaking any of these rules means the game will never end, and the hunters will keep coming until Dodge is dead. Miles tries to convince him further by saying even if he dies, the money will still be transferred, securing his family's financial future. The scene cuts back to a few days earlier. Dodge is jogging through the city, his morning exercise routine. We learn that he's a former athlete and a record breaker at the University of Michigan. After his jog, he heads home to make breakfast for Val. As he does, he sees a pile of late bills that haven't been paid. That evening, Dodge and Val visit a bar owned by his best friend, Luger. During their conversation, it's revealed that Luger had lent Dodge $50,000 for his investment, but he doesn't expect Dodge to pay him back until he gets back on his feet. One morning, on his way to work, Dodge is hit by another excruciating headache, causing him to collapse in the street. He's rushed to the hospital, where Val soon joins him. After running tests, the doctors deliver devastating news. Dodge has terminal brain cancer, and the tumor is inoperable. The couple is heartbroken, but Val encourages him to seek treatment from other hospitals. Dodge then reveals that he has already liquidated his insurance policy to pay for their expenses, leaving them without a safety net. Val is crushed. Before they leave the hospital, a nurse slips Dodge a business card for Tyro Fund, explaining that the company supposedly helps people with terminal illnesses. Back in the present, Dodge thinks long and hard about the offer from Miles. He realizes that this dangerous game could be the only way to secure his family's financial future, so he agrees to play. He lies to Val, telling her that he closed a big deal with an investor named Jerry Pierce and that the money will come in soon. Early the next morning, he tells Val he's going for a jog, but instead, he meets with Miles at a restaurant. Miles takes all of Dodge's belongings, including his phone and wallet, but allows him to keep his medications and a small ultrasound picture of their unborn child. Miles then hands Dodge a new phone, which will show his bank balance and track the money being deposited as the game progresses. The phone will also send Dodge's location to the hunters for 15 seconds every hour. At precisely 6:46 a.m., the game begins. Dodge takes off running through the streets, trying to avoid being caught. He boards a bus, but soon notices a man who seems to be following him. Panicked, Dodge quickly gets off the bus and continues running. Meanwhile, Val sees $50,000 suddenly deposited into their bank account and tries to call Dodge, but he doesn't answer. As Dodge moves through the city, he notices a car tailing him. He quickly ducks into a nearby mall and heads straight for the elevator to escape to the upper floors. While wandering through the empty corridors, Dodge comes face to face with his first hunter, a British man named Nixon. Panic sets in, and Dodge hides in a bathroom stall, but Nixon soon finds him. Dodge manages to shove him aside and make a run for it, bolting down the mall's hallways. However, as soon as he gets downstairs, he's intercepted by another hunter, a southern cowboy named Reagan. Reagan corners Dodge in an empty part of the mall. Dodge, using his athletic background, manages to slip past Reagan and escape once more. As he runs, he checks his phone and sees that more money has been deposited into his account, but he knows the hardest part of the game is just beginning. Every passing hour, the hunters get closer, and the game becomes more intense. Dodge manages to escape from both Nixon and Reagan when they accidentally cross paths and get distracted. Seizing the moment, Dodge runs away and jumps onto a subway train. Meanwhile, we're introduced to one of Miles' men, Connell, who is responsible for monitoring the game in real time. Connell's job is to clean up any evidence of the hunt and ensure everything stays under control. Miles and his staff at Tyro Fund headquarters are also tracking every move of the participants, carefully watching the deadly game unfold. Elsewhere, Val receives a voicemail from Jerry Pierce, the man Dodge claimed he had closed a deal with. In the message, Jerry reveals that there was no deal between him and Dodge, leaving Val even more worried. She tries calling Dodge again, but he doesn't answer. Desperate, Val turns to Luger, but even he doesn't know where Dodge could be. Her concern deepens when she notices that Dodge's bank balance has suddenly increased to $150,000. Val and Luger visit the bank to try and uncover the source of these mysterious deposits, but their inquiries make them look suspicious, forcing them to leave before getting into trouble. Frustrated, they decide to file a missing persons report, but the police tell them they can't take any action until Dodge has been missing for 24 hours. Back in the game, Dodge seeks refuge in an empty church, hiding in a confession booth. A priest, known as Father, approaches him and asks what's troubling him. Dodge confesses that he has become involved in something evil and now finds himself struggling to survive. Suddenly, he spots a shadow lurking outside the booth and, assuming it's one of the hunters, he attacks. However, Father stops him, revealing that the shadow was not a threat. But then, in a surprising twist, Father admits that he is actually one of the hunters. His real name is Carter, and he's a psychologist who has been tracking Dodge's movements, predicting that he would seek sanctuary in the church. Carter locks the doors of the church, trapping Dodge inside. Armed with a hammer, he launches a brutal attack. Dodge fights back, and after a fierce struggle, he manages to trap Carter in a small room, but not before being struck in the leg with the hammer. Injured and limping, Dodge stumbles out of the church and calls Miles for help. But Miles coldly reminds him that the game cannot be paused, urging Dodge to tend to his wounds and keep going. Dodge buys some medical supplies, bandages his leg, and realizes he won't be able to run anymore. Thinking quickly, he decides to blend in with a crowd of spectators who have just left a sporting event. As another hour passes, Dodge's location is revealed to the hunters for 15 seconds. Nixon quickly drives toward Dodge's location, but when he arrives, he can't spot him. Dodge has disguised himself by stealing a jersey and a cap, making him look like just another spectator. Just as he starts to feel safe, a street vendor approaches him, demanding his stolen jersey back. The argument catches Nixon's attention, and he spots Dodge. Realizing he's been seen, Dodge runs toward a parking lot and hides in the trunk of a car. At home, Val is growing more and more anxious as she still can't reach Dodge. Desperate for answers, she searches through his belongings and finds the business card for Tyro Fund. Meanwhile, Dodge's bank balance continues to grow, now totaling $2.2 million. Dodge soon realizes that the car he's hiding in is heading out of the city, which is against the game's rules. Panicked, he starts banging on the trunk, hoping to get out. The family inside the car hears the noise and pulls over to investigate. When they open the trunk, they are shocked to find Dodge inside. They try to call the police, but Dodge quickly grabs their phones and throws them away before fleeing the scene. As night falls, Dodge steals a taxi from a gas station and drives home, exhausted and in pain. But just as he's about to enter his house, Carter reappears, this time riding a motorcycle. Carter swings a metal rod at Dodge, forcing him to retreat. Realizing it's too dangerous to go back to his family, Dodge jumps back into the taxi and drives off. Val, hearing the commotion outside, rushes to the window just in time to see Dodge speeding away. A high-speed chase ensues, with Carter pursuing Dodge down the road. Carter manages to puncture one of the taxi's tires, slowing it down. He jumps onto the taxi, attempting to strangle Dodge from behind. In a desperate move, Dodge accelerates and crashes the car into a tree, narrowly escaping serious injury. Dazed but alive, Dodge approaches the injured Carter, who still threatens to kill him next time they meet. When Carter menacingly implies that he will harm Val, Dodge snaps. In a fit of rage, he grabs a nearby cinder block and smashes it over Carter's head, killing him. Later, Connell reports Carter's death to Miles before discreetly disposing of his body. Meanwhile, Val continues her search for Dodge and decides to visit the location listed on the Tyro Fund business card. However, when she arrives, she finds the building completely empty, leaving her with more questions than answers. As for Dodge, he finds himself on the run again. He steals a ticket and sneaks onto a cruise ship to hide from Reagan, one of the remaining hunters. Exhausted and hungry, Dodge heads to the ship's kitchen in search of food. But there, he comes face to face with the fourth hunter, Kennedy, a martial arts expert who is ready to finish the game. Kennedy wastes no time, launching a brutal attack on Dodge and quickly gaining the upper hand. Just as she's about to deliver the final blow, Dodge desperately sets her clothes on fire and runs toward the roof. As the cruise ship passes under a bridge, he grabs hold of it and climbs up. Kennedy tries to follow him, but Dodge kicks her hand, sending her plunging into the water below. After enduring countless hours of relentless pursuit, Dodge feels his exhaustion catching up with him. Defeated, he's ready to give up. But just then, a vehicle approaches. It's Luger. Relieved, Dodge jumps into the car and gulps down water, trying to catch his breath. Luger asks what's going on, but Dodge simply tells him to keep driving for the next hour. As they talk, Nixon appears and starts chasing them. Realizing Luger's life is now in danger, Dodge makes the hard choice to jump out of the car and continue running on foot. While fleeing, Dodge is captured by a group of local thugs and taken to their hideout. They search him and discover he has $15 million in his bank account. To Dodge's shock, they also realize that his medication is fake. The revelation stuns him, but the thugs are only interested in his money, demanding that he transfer the funds immediately. With just 2 minutes until his location is exposed, Dodge tries to warn them of the imminent danger. They don't believe him and start beating him up, but their assault is interrupted by LBJ, the final hunter, who bursts in and guns down the thugs one by one. As LBJ moves in to finish Dodge, one of the injured thugs shoots him from behind, killing him. In the aftermath, Dodge makes his way to the same hospital where he was first treated, seeking answers. A nurse confirms his worst fears: the medication was fake, and there's no record of him ever being admitted there. Realizing he was deceived, Dodge understands that his terminal illness was a lie, orchestrated to lure him into the deadly game. Furious, he calls Miles to confront him. Miles coolly admits to the scheme but reminds Dodge that he doesn't know his real name or where to find him. However, Miles knows everything about Dodge and his family. In a shocking twist, Miles reveals that it was Luger who accepted $50,000 to drug Dodge and trick him into the game. He then orders Dodge to finish the hunt, promising to release him afterward. Shattered by the betrayal, Dodge quickly calls Val from a telephone booth, explaining everything, including Luger's involvement. He warns her to stay away from him. At that moment, Val is at Luger's place, but after hearing Dodge's warning, she tricks Luger and walks out. However, before she can get far, she is abducted by fake police officers working for Miles, who take her hostage. With only 90 minutes left in the game, Dodge sets up traps in an abandoned building, preparing to confront the remaining hunters: Nixon, Reagan, and Kennedy. One by one, they arrive at the location, eager to take down their target. Reagan is the first to find Dodge, and they engage in a brutal fight, during which Reagan's hand becomes trapped in a beam. Before Dodge can escape, Kennedy sneaks up behind him, ready to strike. But in a surprising turn, Luger appears and shoots her dead. Luger pleads his innocence, claiming he never betrayed Dodge and that Miles was lying to manipulate him. Reunited, the two best friends leave the building, blowing it up on their way out. The explosion kills Reagan, but Nixon narrowly escapes. Connell arrives at the scene to clean up the evidence, as he usually does. But this time, Dodge ambushes him, holding him at gunpoint and demanding to know where Val is. Under pressure, Connell reveals that she's being held at the Carrington. Without wasting time, Dodge rushes to the location and finds Val tied up. He frees her, and the two share a tearful reunion, but their moment is short-lived. Nixon shows up, forcing Dodge into a final showdown on the rooftop. During the fight, Dodge slips and ends up hanging from the building's ledge. As Nixon moves to finish him off, he glances at the rising sun. Realizing that the 24-hour game is officially over, Nixon stops and helps Dodge back up. Calmly, he congratulates Dodge on a well-fought game and walks away. Val and Dodge are finally reunited for good, sharing a heartfelt embrace. Just then, Dodge receives a call from Miles, who congratulates him on winning the game and the prize money. As Season 1 concludes, we see Miles already heading to another city, searching for his next victim and preparing for the next deadly game. And that wraps up the Pulse Racing series' most dangerous game. What did you think of his ultimate showdown with the hunters and that jaw-dropping finale? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more movie breakdowns.